Let's start with the out question on page 1. Susan, Thomas, and Brian are playing bingo. Susan's score is 25 points higher than Thomas, and Thomas' score is 17 points less than Ryan's. If Ryan's score is 64, what is Susan's score? First, we know that Ryan's score is 64. How about Thomas' score? Thomas' score is 14 points less than Ryan's. So we may duplicate 64 points, which is Ryan's scores. Since Thomas is less than Ryan's, so we can minus 17 equals to 47. How about Susan's scores? Susan's score is 25 points higher than Thomas. So we can duplicate Thomas' score 47. And since Susan's score is higher than Thomas, we may add 25, which equals to 72. Let's move on to page 2. Kitty has some candies. She eats 15 and gives away 5. Her father buys her 10 more candies. She has 23 candies left. How many candies does she start with? To remember these kinds of questions, we can use a strategy called work backwards. So now she has 23 candies left. So we start with 23, and then she eats 15, so it should be minus 15. But if we work backwards, then it will be at 15. Then she gives away 5, so it should be minus 5. But if we work backwards, then it will be plus 5. Then her father buys her 10 more candies, so it should be plus 10. But if we work backwards, then it will be minus 10. So now it equals to 33. Let's do the checking. If she has 33 candies in the beginning, and then she eats 15, which is minus 15, and then she gives away 5, which is minus 5, then her father buys her 10 more, so it should be plus 10. And it equals to 23. We can see that it is the same as the candy she has left, so which means it's correct. Let's move on to the next question. If Eric adds 4 to a number and subtracts 10, he will get 15. What is the number? So we may also use work backwards. So the answer he gets is 15, so we'll start with 15. He first added 4, so it should be plus 4. But since we work backwards, it will be minus 4. Then he subtracted 10, so it should be minus 10. Since we work backwards, we change it to plus 10. Which equals to 21. Let's do the checking. If the number is 21, and then we added 4, and then subtracts 10, will equals to 15. We can see that it's equals to his answer, therefore it is right. Let's move on to page 3. Two monsters have 18 hands altogether. One monster has 2 more hands than the other monster. How many hands does each monster have? We may also use a table to figure it out. So the total number of hands is 18. First, we may separate 18 into 2 equal parts, which equals to 9. However, the 2 monsters doesn't have the same number of hands. One monster has 2 more hands than the other monsters. Now let's say if monster A is the one who has more hands. So we may try to add 1 to monster A so that it has 10 hands. And minus 1 from monster B so that it has 8 hands. Now 10 plus 8 equals to 18, and 10 minus 8 equals to 2. Therefore, one of them has 10 hands and the other have 8. Let's move on to page 5. It is 245 miles from city A to city B. If a minibus travels 60 miles every hour, how far is the minibus from city B after 2 hours? First, we may find out how far the minibus travels after 2 hours. So the minibus travels 60 miles per hour. For 2 hours, it will be 60 plus 60 equals to 120 miles. Therefore, the minibus has traveled for 120 miles after 2 hours. Now we may calculate the distance between the minibus and city B. We may have 245 minus 120, which equals to 125 miles. Let's move on to page 8. Ivy has a bag full of biscuits. She gives 11 biscuits to Ryan and 15 to Rebecca. Then she takes 23 biscuits to eat. When she comes back for more biscuits, she sees that there are only 12 biscuits left in her bag. So how many biscuits does Ivy have in the beginning? I'm sure that you're pretty familiar with these kinds of questions. You're right, again we're going to use work backwards. So there are only 12 biscuits left, so we'll start with 12. And then she gives 11 biscuits to Ryan, so it should be minus 11, but if we work backwards, so it'll be plus 11. Then she gives 15 to Rebecca, it should be minus 15, but work backwards, so we'll add 15. Then she takes 23 to eat, so it should be minus 23, but since we work backwards, we change it to plus 23, which equals to 61. Now let's do the checking. If she originally has 61 biscuits, and then she gives 11 biscuits away, so we minus 11, and then she gives 15 away, so we minus 15, and then she takes 23, so we minus 23, and it also equals to 12. Let's move on to the last question. Ricky collects rocks. He keeps them in round boxes and square boxes. All of the round boxes have the same number of rocks, and all the square boxes have the same number of rocks. Look at the clues to find out how many rocks are in each box. Let's look at the first clue. A round boxes and a square box equals to 14 rocks. The next clue, 2 round boxes equals to 12 rocks. So we know that each round boxes contains 6 rocks. Now let's get back to the first clue. The round boxes have 6 rocks, so the square boxes contain 14 minus 6 equals to 8 rocks. Now for the third clue, we know that each square boxes contain 8 rocks and each round boxes contain 6 blocks. So it's 8 plus 8 plus 6 equals to 22. Now how many rocks are in the round box? We know that it's 6. And how many are in the square box? It should be 8. Now let's look at the sets of boxes below. For set 1, we have 2 round boxes and 1 square box. And for set 2, we have 2 square boxes and 1 round box. So which set has more rocks? Set 1 or set 2? So set 1, we have 6 plus 6 plus 8 equals to 20 rocks. And set B is 8 plus 8 plus 6 equals to 22. So is 20 larger or 22 is larger? It should be 22. Therefore, set 2 has more rocks than set 1.